Hi, welcome to Pastor Talk. I'm Pastor Steve. Today in our devotion, I want to talk to you about faith. Faith is of course, such an important item for us as a Christian. It's the theology of faith, understanding faith, having faith is so important. We really can't talk enough about faith, but of course we can't just talk all the time about faith. We have to talk about some of the other issues in the Bible as well. But I want to talk to you about the definition of faith in Hebrews chapter 11, the chapter in which we really call it the heroes of faith because it lists so many Old Testament saints that walked in faith and what they did because of their faith. We see the definition of faith in verse 1. Let us start by looking at the definition of faith, and that's what I want to talk about. What is the evidence of faith? What is faith? Chapter 11 of Hebrews, verse 1, says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Our writer in Hebrews is wanting us to understand really what faith looks like. It has substance. It is what it is. It has evidence that it's real and alive. James tells us in chapter 2 of the book of James that faith without works is dead, trying to explain to us that we can't just say we believe and then just live any way we want. There should be evidence of our faith. Now, faith is so important. And in this marvelous chapter on faith in chapter 11 of Hebrews, in the 6th verse, we are told, "But without faith, it is impossible to please God." So what the scriptures are trying to show us in chapter 11 of Hebrews is the faith of some of the great men of God and women of God in the Old Testament that pleased God. How did they please God? What was the evidence of their faith? What really pleased God about these men that God literally shows them in this chapter and gives them speaks of them here and gives them honor really by speaking of their great faith? Well, I find it very interesting that the very first example after verse 6, where it says it takes faith to please God, we have the great story of Noah. Now, Noah built an ark, as we all know. In fact, I spoke about the meaning, I think, or the picture that God's trying to give us with Noah and the flood in one of the earlier videos on Noah and the End Time is the name of it. I think it's number 9. But here he speaks of Noah right after saying it takes faith to please God. The first example we have, and I don't think it's an accident, that Noah is the great example that he gives us of what faith looks like. God spoke to Noah, and it says in verse 7, "By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not yet as seen, built an ark." You know, Noah was told by God that he was going to flood the earth, that there was a judgment coming. And what pleased God was that he believed enough in this judgment that was coming, even though it hadn't happened yet. He hadn't even seen rain in his lifetime. He didn't know what rain was. And God says he's going to send down rain and flood the earth. And he didn't even know, had never even seen rain, but he believed God enough that it gave actions to his belief. He believed God, and therefore he acted. He did something. You see, faith is doing something because of what you believe. And I believe Noah is one of the great examples, because the first example he gives us is Noah. And the reason I believe that's such a critical start for him to show us how Noah pleased God was because it spoke of judgment. If we really believe there's a day of judgment, if we really believe there's a day when we're going to stand before God and be judged because of our sin, if we really believe that all mankind is going to be judged and there's a judgment at the end of time that God speaks of as well, if we truly believe that, then we will act. Faith is action. Well, he goes on, and we read of many great things that some of the great men of God and women of God did in the Old Testament. Abraham obeyed God, it says. He embraced what God said. He confessed what God said. He declared that he believed, and he left his people, he left his home, he left his old life to search out the city that God had spoken of. Again, faith was an action to Abraham, and Abraham is called the father of faith. What a great example he is. His life is an example to us of our whole entire life of faith. But I want you to see that faith it's action. Faith is, I believe, therefore I do. Faith is, therefore I obey, as Abraham did. Faith is, therefore I embrace what God says because I believe. Faith is obeying. Faith is embracing. Faith is confessing. Faith is an action of doing. He left his home and his old life to live a new life, and that's what we're supposed to do. And it goes on and talks about some of the other great men of God. It speaks of Sarah and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Moses' parents. And then we have the great example of Moses. Here's a man that was second to the Pharaoh and had everything he could ever want in life. But he knew that God's people suffered and that he couldn't have it both ways. That he was willing to sacrifice. It says that he gave up everything that he might suffer with the people of God. You see, we are called to act on our faith and be willing to suffer with the other Christians of this world. You know, we in America have it easy compared to Christians in third world countries where they're being killed and tortured and suffering for their faith. But we must be willing to suffer with the people of God. We must be willing to take on that name of Jesus. We must be willing to act on what we believe, and with that will come persecution, according to the Apostle Paul. Faith is action. Now, I could go on and on about what faith is, but the issue is faith is action. Faith is works. Faith is doing something because you believe. Now, I want to add one more point to it. Here's the definition, just the first part. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for. You see, faith is now. Not, I got saved 10 years ago. What is your faith now? Are you walking and living an active, living faith? Now, it says in verse 1 of Hebrews 11. Now, faith is. Oh, beloved, what is your faith now? Is your faith now? Can you say my faith is? Because you act on your faith and live on your faith. Well, I hope this has been informative to you and instructive and hopefully a thought provoker for you. This is Pastor Talk for you, and I'm Pastor Steve, and God bless you.